Hi IOD community, welcome back to another DIY tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you all how to make this super cute stamped little frame, and the best part is we are going to do a tutorial on how to use watercolor in the IOD stamps. As usual, you can find any of the items used today in the description or the accompanying blog post. For any IOD products, visit our website ironorchiddesigns.com and click the red Where to Buy button in the top right-hand corner to find your nearest in-person or online stockist. To begin, we are going to stamp our composition. To do that, grab the IOD stamps that you want to watercolor. We chose Charlotte because I thought the designs would be really fun with color and to see what I can do with that. Using the rose stamps, I stamped the top and bottom and wanted to create a wreath-like composition that moves your eye around the entire paper instead of in just one spot. And to do that, I stamped 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, as I said before, but it is more of like a round shape. And then we stamped a little bee in the bottom left corner nestled in the flowers. We are going to use the butterfly stamp next, but we want it to look like it is emerging from behind the roses. So to do that, take your rose mask, lay it on top best you can, lining up the edges, and stamp the butterfly right on top. And as you can see, it looks like the butterfly is nestled behind all those roses. Next is the best part. Once the ink is completely dry, we are going to watercolor these designs and bring them to life the way you imagine. But please bear with me because I do not watercolor very often, and I'm still very, very new to watercolor and the technique. I did watch many tutorials of some of you actually teaching me, making YouTube videos on how to watercolor in stamps, specifically IOD stamps. And yeah, so I'm really excited to try this technique, and I'm really excited to share with you guys best I can on how I accomplished that. First, you want to have a cup of water nearby for cleaning your brush in between colors. Wet your paints with a damp watercolor brush. We started with pink for the roses, dabbing a little bit of water with our brush onto the paper before going in with the color. As you can see, I have a photo for reference because I wanted to try to replicate the colors of the butterfly in the reference photo, and reference photos for the bumblebee as well. The technique that I used when painting this piece was to get a bunch of water on the brush and brush in where you want the paint to go. You want to go a little bit at a time, little sections at a time, so the paper doesn't saturate all that water. Go back in with a little bit of pigment on the brush and fill in where you laid out the water from before, and it will fill up the design so nicely, very lightly. If you want to go in with more pigment, please do so. This is your piece. This is just the technique that I used that worked best for me. Once your watercolor is dry, go ahead and place a wood blank on top of the artwork and trace around the edges with a pencil or a pen. You're going to cut with scissors or a paper cutter if you have one. We did not, so scissors will do just fine. Don't worry too much about getting the size perfect. We will be adding a frame that will cover it. Next, we are using 2-inch adhesive tape to adhere the artwork onto the wood blank. Go ahead and work around the edges of the board, pulling off the adhesive paper and then placing the artwork as best you can, aligning the edges on top. Give even pressure to ensure that it adheres perfectly. Once you have applied even pressure, go back in with scissors and trim off all the edges that are falling over the edge. Now it's time to make the frame. We took the IOD air dried clay and we want to use that for the frame. To begin, take the molds that you are using. We are using the Faux Bois mold and dust with cornstarch so that the clay can be removed easily without ripping. If you are a beginner using IOD molds, don't worry, head over to ironorcadesigns.com, hit the product drop down, and hit the molds tab to find a 101 video on how to use the IOD molds. We chose this mold specifically because we wanted it to fit in with the garden theme. So once you have applied the cornstarch, go ahead and roll a very thin snake-like shape of clay and push it into the mold cavity. For our 8x10 frame, we needed 4 castings, so repeat if you are using a larger piece. Go ahead and place your casting along the edge of the frame and use a wood glue to adhere the clay onto the frame. You will need to trim your castings depending on the size of your piece. To trim the castings, we used a little palette knife tool instead of scissors so that we could get a cleaner cut. Next, go ahead and follow up with a soft white chalk paint. Get in touch with your local stockist to see what paint they recommend. There are so many different brands and kinds of paint out there, so reach out to your local stockist to see what is best for you. Next, go ahead and leave the frame to dry before moving on to the glaze. This only took us 2 coats, and while you're painting the clay, go ahead and paint the wood frame as well, so everything just matches perfectly, and then we can move in with the glaze. Go ahead and take a gray glaze and brush on to where you applied the white chalk paint. You do not need a lot of glaze. We do this so that we can really pop the details of the twig molds. Once everything is dry, your frame is done. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this project inspired you to make something beautiful for your home that you can be proud of. Share your creations with us in the Facebook Creative Tribe. We can't wait to see you there, and we hope to see you back for our next tutorial.